Good evening, everybody, and welcome back to the Bundesliga show brought to you by Over the Bar. Season's greetings. As you can see, I'm very festive back here in HQ for the Petries. Checking in tonight for another match week review, our last show of 2024, we think. Very excited to get stuck into it tonight. And tonight, for the first time in a while, nice way to finish 2024. The terrific trio are back all together to do it all. So Mark and Peter, good evening. How are you both doing?
Not bad at all here in Nuremberg, thanks. Just enjoying the last of the Christmas markets, and then obviously Christmas plans start tomorrow. So how are you, Peter, over there?
Oh, well, Yuletide greetings from across the pond from the city of brotherly love. Glad we could all get together one last time this calendar year.
Absolutely. Loads to get stuck into. It was a wild match week 15. Great way to finish for the winter break now for the Bundesliga, as sad as that is. Now I have to forcibly watch Man United. That's even more painful than, indigestion after Christmas dinner, isn't it? But alas, loads to get stuck into. Before we do that, let's just do the usuals of admin. First and foremost, obviously we're a podcast as well, very much going strong on all fronts in that sense. So please do make sure you find us on there, leave a rating and a review. That'd be fantastic. Make sure you leave a thumbs up on this show. That'd be fantastic. Comment along. See Justin's tuning in. So good morning to you, Justin, and anyone else who might want to get involved in the chat. Make sure you subscribe as well. And one last final shout to our brilliant partners, starting off with the Bundesliga boxes. Excellent company and superbly run by Rich. So make sure you check them out and get yourself something for the new year as well. A nice box. And of course, Bully News for all the great work that we do together in respect fantasy football, and also all the brilliant articles that Peter and Runa and the team do on a daily basis over on bullynews.com. Right then, chaps, let's just get stuck into it, and we'll try and do this with some kind of sense of order because there were so many goals, so much action to kind of walk through. We had 5-1 matches, so we're going to kick off with them, and we'll work it slightly chronologically. So we'll work our way back to Friday night, which was a really entertaining start to Friday night and this match week. We had a Bundesliga record within 2 minutes as both Bayern and RB Leipzig struck inside of 2 minutes to make it one apiece. First time that's ever been done, I believe, in Bundesliga history. Two sides scoring a goal apiece inside of the 2 minute marker. And that kind of set up the game in a sense, but I guess it set up for what was to follow in the sense of just pure Bayern domination. I think we were all wanting to know the answer to the question, which was how would Bayern respond to the Mainz defeat? We all know previously that Bayern respond invariably very, very well to defeats, and they come bouncing back and usually win their next game very convincingly. But we'd not seen this under Vincent Kompany yet, so there were questions to be answered. And Mark, they answered it in emphatic style. I know we were chatting a little bit across the weekend, and you said that's probably the best that you've seen them in all season potentially. And when you said it to me, I was like, yeah, they played well. But since I've been back and forth reviewing it, they were damn good.
Yeah, to quote our friend Thomas Muller, they needed a reaction, and oh boy, did they get it, basically, in this game. They really did. It was an amazing performance. I feel as though, I actually switched on just after the 1-0. So I was like, geez, just as Leipzig were kind of building up for that 1-1, I was like, wow, that is an early start. And then obviously Leipzig replied with that really nice equaliser through Šeško. But then after that, to be honest, it was just an absolute hammering. But what can you say? Just a quick glance at the XG tells you half the story, really. They managed to clock up 4.7 against just 0.31. That is domination, complete domination. And it really was a strong performance. I think Obviously, on the Leipzig goal, Kim did get caught out quite badly, which, let's be honest, he's been done. That is vintage Kim, really, that when he gets done on the kind of the long ball through like that, isn't it? But after that, I mean, it was just to a man, it was a great performance. I feel as though the Kane return was big. He didn't get the goal, but obviously, I mean, just having him as kind of a figurehead at the top of that attack is so big, isn't it? Really. I mean, time after time we talk about this, but it really is vital. I feel as though the Goretzka-Kimmich midfield worked really, really well too. I mean, Goretzka's had a really good first half of the season, actually, despite, the fact that he is kind of linked with a move almost every week, it seems, these days. And I think it is still possible he'll move on in January, incredibly. But it was a great performance from him. Olise, also fantastic, and they just completely overran Leipzig. I mean, the press was amazing. The quality down the wings was just top drawer, and they just couldn't do anything about it, basically. For me, it was probably their best performance of the season, simply because of the opposition. I mean, myself and Peter were there at the Red Bull Arena last week, and we saw how good Leipzig were. I'll be honest, I was a little bit surprised that Campbell moved out. I mean, I understand that Campbell's more of an attacking mid, but myself and Peter were so impressed with that Schlager-Campbell axis last week. And I was a little bit surprised to see that get broken up. I mean, on one side, I understand it because Campbell's more of an attacking kind of outlet in that position, and Vermeeren is more defensive. But Vermeeren is not a player who's ever really impressed me in a Leipzig shirt, in truth. And I feel as though Campbell probably should have been given the nod in this game, specifically after such a good performance last week. But it was all about Bayern, wasn't it? I mean, Peter, you tipped it that they never lose in these last matches at the end of the Hinrunde just before Christmas, and it was a stellar performance from Bayern. But obviously, we have to mention it, really, don't we, after what's gone on this week in Germany with the whole the Christmas market tragedy that happened over in Magdeburg. I mean, the kind of celebrations were really muted as well, and there were quite emotional scenes at the end of the game as well, when the speech was given and things, and the fact that some of the fans weren't aware of what had actually gone on during that match. It actually happened, I think, a little bit before the match, but obviously some of the people were at the game. And, I'm sure all of us wish the best to the city of Magdeburg and the tragic events that happened. But as for the game, I mean, obviously the end of the game was more like football is, some things are bigger than football, aren't they? But as for the game, Peter, I mean, do you concur with me that it was just a case of Bayern being really good, or do you think Leipzig really underperformed in the game?
Well, as you mentioned, the events in Magdeburg pretty much overshadowed the post-match commentary. Excuse me. And for this reason, Rose didn't really have to answer for his tactics. Fair enough. Rose himself is a Leipzig native. He's from the East. Magdeburg is practically home to him, as he said. So no one really wanted to talk about some scramble tactics from an East German trainer in this one, not after what happened. The tactics were from Rosa in this instance. I'm not entirely sure why Campbell was left out. What Rosa did was he went for his 3-4-3 pillow, or 3-3-2-2 if you prefer. And what was exceptionally odd about this was that I believe Antonio Nusa was playing as a wing back. And that is as far back as I have ever seen him play. And clearly he and Henriks, who had also moved ahead to take the right wing back role with Nusa on the left, they were not synchronized at all. And when you're playing against Bayern, who are so strong up both flanks, I don't understand why you put something like this forward. And as Christoph Baumgartner mentioned in his post-match comments last week, he's really a different player when Schlager is able to pick out a ball for him. So the only explanation I can give here is that maybe he wanted to get Campbell out of the way so that Schlager and Baumgartner could sort of have a direct path there. And then he had Vermeeren up top, quite possibly to get him that final deployment so they could trigger the automatic purchase clause. But that could have been just as easily done after the turn of the calendar year. Vermeeren is much more of a 6 than he is an 8, or in this case, he was practically playing out there on the wing. So, it's Rosa really boggled this one yet again. I think that, the questions that we had about the Marco Rose regime and how long it can go on, particularly how long it can go on now that Jurgen Klopp has this, well, somewhat cushy job as the head of the RB system. But he will be naturally asked by this organization if he wants a new trainer heading into the new calendar year. And there are questions that need to be answered. I think that's all I'll say about that. The festivities that were planned at the Allianz Arena afterwards were, of course, canceled out of respect for the victims of this attack. But you did get a look at what the special Christmas plans were when you see what took place at the Bayer Arena in Leverkusen on Saturday evening. I hope that everybody hung on to check out the post-match of that game, because that was really cool. They had, of course, a children's choir at the halfway line that sung, and the players unfurled a banner, and there were some Christmas carols that were sung by the ultras. So I guess is that the next match that we're prepared to talk about, Rory? Or
yeah, pretty much. I mean, like we say, events that happened on Friday night very much muted everything that was going on from a football aspect. Of course, we want to pay our respects as much as we possibly can do, and some good words from yourself, Mark and Peter, on that. From that match point of view, I think you can probably say Bayern couldn't be more happy with the way that they responded. Some outstanding performances individually out there. Leipzig looking certainly a little bit, just in the mire. One other thing that caught my eye, just on Leipzig, was Seevald started in the back three as well. Not something that we've maybe seen much from him. Might have been another one that Rosa ultimately didn't potentially get right. Certainly, he's had a pretty decent record against Bayern for Leipzig as well, but didn't come to pass. And as Mark already said, the XG was an almighty 4.7 for Bayern. They really should have been, absolutely miles ahead into the second half. Another comment as well on, I thought Joshua Kimmich has really shown real quality in the last few games, and he put in an outstanding performance. Great goal, lovely cross for the Davis goal, I want to say. Overall, really impressive from the captain on the night. Happy Christmas from a footballing point of view, and 3 points for Bayern. They did their job on Friday evening, putting the pressure onto Leverkusen, of course, as Peter, you've correctly mentioned there. They were playing on Saturday evening, so the top spiel was, what looked like a very, good fixture. Leverkusen, took a while to get into it. I think, Freiburg had the early chance where Lienhardt hits the bar. Then, of course, Florian Wirtz starts the party, although it is a bit of a false start because he misses the penalty after Bolu does well to save that, but then makes amends very quickly by setting up Paddy Schick for his first of four goals on the evening, really demonstrating his qualities in a number of assets. And obviously, he returned to the side. And one thing I was kind of teasing on social media a little bit after the game, and we can talk about the game more so in a bit of depth, but I just wanted to throw this out to you two lads as well whilst we're chatting. And Peter, you can kind of have your say on this first, is that in the absence of Victor Boniface, it is a fit and firing Paddy Schick, a striker who will take Leverkusen back into a title. Well, they're in a title race, let's be honest, but back onto Bayern's heels and take them beyond them as well.
Sorry, it took me a second to unmute there. It kind of reminds me, I think it was a little over a year ago that Mark and I were doing a watch along, and we were screaming for Schick. After this groin injury that kept him sidelined for so long, so many of us were rooting for him. After all, he was in the top scorer race before he got hurt in the German Bundesliga. That was in the 21 campaign. So I had to check there for a second to make sure that Schick got the man of the match honors. He did, after all, score 4 goals. However, Wirtz also scored a goal and collected a hat trick of assists. So had man of the match honors been conferred upon him, that would have been equally as justified, I would say. Yeah, you did mention that Wirtz misses that penalty. Mark and I think, are now all in on Noah Atubolo after declaring that he may not have been ready quite yet. He proved why he is the German national team keeper actually several times in this match. It could have been a lot worse. Well, what a match. This, of course, thanks to the slip-ups of other teams, notably Frankfurt and Leipzig, puts Bayern 04 Leverkusen back in second position, only 4 points behind FC Bayern München. And, of course, being the precise German that I am, I have to point out that the Hinrunde is not over just yet. We still have 2 more match days to go before we officially meet the halfway point of the season. That is the case now in German football. It used to be the case that everything was nicely segmented in the calendar year there. What else did I want to mention? Oh, yes, this is actually not Red Bull. This is San Pellegrino. I'm not sure. But to catch up a little bit on this match, of course, this was just an incredibly sublime performance from Florian Wirtz, who is well on his way to being the best footballer in the world at this point, unless Jamal Musiala wants to steal his thunder. Wow, what an incredible match by him, setting up those 3 goals. And scoring 1 himself. He was positioned as a 10 in this one, behind both Patrick Schick and Nathan Tella. We've spoken a lot about how Tella was a converted wingback for Xabi Alonso, and he was very, very vocal about the fact that he was not a wingback. He wanted to run out as striker. And since he's been moved to the striker position after Boniface's injury and some of the other injuries that Schick has been struggling with, I say that he's done a halfway decent job. The score sheet might not always reflect it, but the amount of work that he's done, holding up the ball, working the deep drops, also making the most of his chances, I think they've been quite good. There have been times when he's appeared a little bit on the cagey and the rusty side, but he's been operating as a wingback for almost a full season. He never really got a chance to play the position that he played at Southampton here at Leverkusen. So with Boniface, without Boniface, it doesn't really matter. What we saw from Leverkusen in the stumble early this season, a lot of it had to do with the fact that we had some departures along the defensive line. We had Tapsoba switching back over to a rightward slant. And now Leverkusen have stabilized in large part because they've got their best 11 in place. The automatisms are there. Xabi's rotations are finally working out a little bit better. And we have a solid back 3 in Tapsoba, who's been much, much better now that he's got accustomed to his new position. And Hincapié, who also had some runouts as a wing back, adjusting to his role in that back 3. He actually signed a very big, huge contract before the start of the match. Mark, what additional thoughts do you have on this one, the one that gives us 2 clear front runners for the title?
Yeah, I just want to focus in on the boy Paddy Schick. I mean, I thought the finish for that first goal, I mean, that's not been mentioned enough, really. That was a beautiful finish. Bear in mind that Atubolo had just made a brilliant save just a few minutes before that, and he literally got chipped from miles out there. And I mean, it was just pure quality of a finish, I felt. Yeah, it was brilliant. And to be honest, I think when Boniface does come back, you can't really find a justification for bringing him back into the starting 11, to be honest, because I think Schick, when he's played this last, 2 months, he's been really, really good. And that's 9 goals for the season for him now. And I believe he didn't have any until kind of late October time when Boniface got injured. So it's some number. And he got a hat-trick against Heidenheim just a few weeks ago too, a 4-fold here. And, obviously you got the Lupenreiner hat-trick as well. Let's not forget that. We all love a Lupenreiner on Over the Bar show. Which obviously means, the hat-trick of 3 back-to-back goals scored in 1 half as well, which is a special German style of hat-trick. But yeah, I mean, what a performance. To be honest, Leverkusen don't want the year to finish, really. I mean, they finished the year on, 8 straight wins, and it's been 8 brilliant performances mostly as well. Let's not forget, they've beaten Bayern Munich at the Allianz, they've beaten Inter Milan, they've beaten a number of good Bundesliga teams, and this was a hell of a performance, as you say. I mean, Flo Wirtz, is well and truly in his fine form again now. Just everything's clicking for them right now. And I feel as though the winter break doesn't come at the right time, really. I mean, I'm sure Jabby will be happy to kind of get a few more bodies back, the likes of Boniface, over the next few weeks. But, I mean, it's been another really good season for them. I mean, let's be honest, on a 13-match unbeaten run again now. So, I mean, they finally lose a game after, 35 matches, and then they go and put together a tidy little 13-matcher again in the Bundesliga. So it's just, these are just dream days really for Bayer Leverkusen. You know, it'll probably never get as good as this for the rest of their history, really, if we're being honest. It's just brilliant times, a brilliant team, and you know, they're once again in the Bundesliga fight, and who would rule them out of winning the title again come May?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, great performance. I mean, did we have any doubts at 2-1 when Grifo slots in that delightful little toe poke? Because Freiburg had a few chances on the break. You know, I think if the eventual suffocation of the pressing, which Leverkusen did exceptionally well, which Bayern did exceptionally well as well on Friday, it felt inevitable. But whilst it was 2-1, Mark, did you have any doubts? Did you think that, you know, just another Grifo worldie might come up here and disturb things?
To be honest, no, because I think earlier in the season I would have done, because obviously that famous game against Kiel, which, to be honest, I wouldn't be surprised come the end of the season, they still have nightmares over that, because, you know, that was really 2 points dropped. But they were just playing too well. It was just chance after chance in the game, and the football was just so good, you know. And okay, Freiburg, they went with the same side that played when me and Peter were in the stadium last week, and they played well in that game. They're a dangerous team, Freiburg. You know, Grifo had a good day. I think with Freiburg, as long as one of Grifo and Doan turn up, then they look a decent side going forward. And last week it was Doan, and this week it was Grifo. And obviously he smacked one off the bar as well. Let's not forget that. That was a 3-1. So, I mean, they weren't terrible, but they just came up against a better team who were really on form today. I wouldn't have any worries about Freiburg, really, based on this performance. Right. I thought they contributed to what was a really entertaining top spiel, to be honest.
Yeah, I think Freiburg, obviously, from a table point of view, they are pretty much where, you know, 9th in the league. And, you know, that's a fair reflection. 7 wins, 5 losses, pretty equal goal difference. I think, yeah, no worries about Freiburg. Like I said, they contributed. You'd like to see a bit more involvement and pressure off of Doan and Grifo every so often. But yeah, either way around, certainly an interesting game. So to our third 5-1 game of the weekend. And yeah, I mean, if we're talking about surprises, and we had a weekend of shocks, we really did. This was absolutely crazy, unreal stuff from Holstein Kiel, smacking FC Augsburg 5-1, being 4-1 up at the break, with a disallowed goal as well in the mix. They did eventually get their 5th goal right at the end. But yeah, this was a wild game. And just, well, sometimes you get those perfect days, and regardless of what happens to Holstein Kiel later on into the season from a relegation point of view, they'll all certainly have this day to reflect on, where they all got to sit back and watch the Shuto Machino show. The main man getting 2 assists and 2 goals. He was all over the place, absolutely electric, helping set up the first few goals. We had a mixture, some thrown in fun from Mark's best friend, Mr. Laborovic, in net for the 3rd goal, not necessarily covering himself in glory too much there. Yeah, everything just went the way of Kiel, because I think you can maybe say on the 2nd goal, the cross takes a little bit of a deflection and maybe helps out Jerez in terms of getting to the ball first. But I think, you know, Kiel were probably due a bit of good luck. And when you're on the front foot and you're trying to make things happen, invariably luck goes your way. So, Mark, yeah, what did you reckon for this 2nd win of the season for Kiel? But it's the first time they've gone beyond 2 goals in any match. I think they've obviously scored 5 goals in this one. They've previously only scored a total of 5 goals in their last 7 games. I think I counted it. So goals has obviously been a hard thing to come by, but it all fell into place on Saturday afternoon.
Yeah, well, what have I been saying for the last few months? No Holtby, no problem, basically. It's as simple as that. But yeah, I mean, our boy Lewis was once again dropped, and yet again, Kiel deliver a better performance. So it's just as simple as that. But I mean, let's be honest, there was more to it than just the dropping of Holtby in this game. I mean, obviously the return of our boy and over-the-bar legend Shuto Machino was great to see as well, because he is a man that proved himself early in the season that he could score Bundesliga goals. I think he got 4 in the first 5 or 6 games, but then like a bit of a loss of form, he kind of found himself out of the team, didn't he? But the last 2 or 3 weeks, he's come back into a bit of form. And, you know, this was a hell of a performance from him, bagging another double and getting a couple of assists as well. So that was great to see. Again, how many times I have to mention it, but I think the Remberg, Gigovic is... along with Knudsen as well in some games, has worked so much better in midfield. And Knudsen, when he came on, was also good, and this worked really well for them. I think, Harris was back on form. I think me and Peter had kind of, we were a bit worried about his form in recent times, but he really showed up in this game against an Augsburg side who were awful after the goal, basically. I mean, this is a worry. I mean, me and Rory talk about this all the time, don't we, about their poor away form. But my God, they've lost 4-0 at Heidenheim, 5-1 at Kiel. I mean, if they want to become like a real stable mid-table club, they've got to learn how to play away from home, because, some of the results they get on the road are pretty woeful, to be honest. But this was about Kiel for me. I really feel as though they played well. Obviously, they had to react to going 1 down very early on. I mean, our boy Claude Maurice was set up by Ascende, and it looked like it was going to be an easy away win at that point. But another thing I would like to mention as well was the loss of Schlotterbeck as well for Augsburg very early on in the game. I mean, when I was following this one and when I saw that, I started to fear for Augsburg, because I believe Schlotterbeck is their defense, basically, as far as I'm concerned. And I mean, he is such a good player, but sadly this season they've not been able to keep him on the pitch enough of the time. And he either gets a suspension or an injury. And that is a pity for them, because I think if he stays on the pitch, they wouldn't lose this game 5-1, put it that way. And to be honest, they probably wouldn't lose at all. I would go that far if Schlotterbeck was on. He's their organizer. He makes Labrovic feel a lot more comfortable as well. I mean, Labrovic is a man that, I just don't rate, basically. I think I've said that enough times on the channel. And that third goal wasn't his proudest moment. Let's say that much. But respect to Holstein. It was a great result. To a man, it was a good performance. Even Peter's favourite Weiner made a couple of good saves towards the end as well. Peter, were you equally impressed? And is it a case of just drop Holby and Kiel stay up?
No. I mean, it's you have to realize that what happened here was so surreal and so weird that. I think there's a very telling statistic. Kiel scored 4 of those 4 first half goals with an XG of like 1.87, or it might have been even lower. So this was a case of just everything going wrong for Augsburg. As you mentioned, the Schlotterbeck lost. As you mentioned, Labrovic, terrible performance from him. Also, Chris Lane Matsima, who may not be quite ready for prime time in that back three. So. Yeah, I mean, we want Kiel to stay up. Why do we want Kiel to stay up? Because we got over the bar legends all over the place. We have Shuto Machino, a name that we will not stop wanting to speak. We have Magnus Knudsen, who is the most Norwegian sounding, most Scandinavian sounding name since Olaf Gustafsson. Okay, I mean, it's perfect. And of course, we have Phil Harris, who Mark and I are just not going to stop mentioning the fact that he was playing for Hamburg in the 4th division last season. So, I mean, but it really, if you look at the XG, the full-time XG was only 2.17 to 1.72. So this was really just a case of a comedy of errors from Augsburg, and Kiel really playing themselves into a frenzy in which they believed every time they got the ball, they could score, and they almost made it happen with their minds. I'm not. I want to emphasize that I respect teams that play themselves into such frenzies. Perhaps I know that I've been on the pitch. I've had the privilege of being on the pitch where everybody is confident in one another. Everybody believes that it can happen, and everybody's ready to take that distance effort, and everybody's ready to win that midfield challenge and everything. It must have been amazing for them to be on the pitch during that opening 45 minutes. It must have been amazing to have been in the stadium. Wow. They really did shock us all. But this is clearly a team that, if you look at the personnel, how many top flight players do we have here? I mean, Machito is leading the team in scoring, but he doesn't seem to be able to keep his fitness level up to start every week. Harris has been up and down in form, understandably so, since he was playing in the fourth division. We've got injuries in a lot of the attacking core, injuries at the back too. I will not say I don't think that the defense in this one was all that convincing throughout. I think Augsburg just really fell to pieces and gave up, and their confidence was shot to pieces. And I mean, if you looked at this on like a man marking level, they at times didn't even look to be that good of a team. But what a result. What an opening 45 minutes and really something to make this relegation race very, very interesting now, I have to say, because we now have, Augsburg, Torup and Philip Tietz were admitting afterwards, look, we feel like relegation candidates now. You could say the same for Hoffenheim after another significant loss this week. You can maybe even say the same for Union. If they cannot get their act together in some way, shape, or form. They're 9 matches without a win heading into the winter break. So, yes, this is a big statement from Kiel. I expect it won't be too long before we're talking about the big statement from Bochum as well. So,
yeah.
How about you,
Roy? Excellent performance from Kiel. I just want to quickly pop up some comments and then we'll move on, as obviously we need to move the show on to get through all the games. Justin is very disappointed in you, Peter, for not having a Red Bull can, I'm afraid. Valim in the chat saying San Pellegrino. Yeah, close enough with his guess. DM as well saying, owe you an apology, Peter, for saying that you'd lost your mind when you predicted Dortmund to beat the Wolves 3-0. I bow to your superior football knowledge, sir. Nice comments in from everyone getting involved with our last show before the end of the year. Let's move on from the 5-1 score lines and move to one goal less, shall we? Let's talk about Werder Union, because Peter, you kind of half mentioned the away side and how they are very much in a bit of bother from a form point of view. Things certainly aren't going too well for the Berlin side right now. But it's all, for Werder at least, it's all starting to just fall nicely into place. And again, I'll kind of switch things up. I'll come to you first on this one, Peter. I think when personally, checking back to my own Stuttgart knowledge, when Werder played Stuttgart and the match was 2-2 earlier, either earlier in the month or, in late November, Werder were quite clearly the better side and they would have been very disappointed not to have won that game. But since they've gone on and won the next 3 games, they've been super impressive. Again, this was a strong and powerful first half where obviously, the home side got themselves 2 up pretty quickly. 2 goals from Gruhl after some nice crosses. First of all from Schmidt. And then Cahun offering up a nice kind of cutback. I thought he had a good game, actually. The fullback, after Union pegged them back briefly through a lovely cross from Tom Rota for Schaefer to put in at the back post. They then regained control with Mitchell Weiser turning up again from a low cross. Some good work there to make it 3-1. And then they kind of, controlled. It was an even second half, but then the whole world's a stage. Jens Steger got the fourth to square things off. So Just thoughts on Werder, whether it's this game or even in the last 3 games. What have you picked up? That their position is very much deserving of how well they've done in the last few games.
This is really an excellent roster, and you mentioned you stole my thunder with Jens. All the world's a stage.
I only say it because you say it.
He began this season as a defensive midfielder, and since that hat trick that he scored earlier this season, he's just keeps getting his name on the score sheet. He's now scored 7 goals over the course of actually just 11 appearances this season through 15 rounds, because he's only been, he's been hurt. So yeah, that was the hat trick against Hoffenheim in week 5. He scored against Kiel week 10, scored against Stuttgart week 12, scored against Bochum week 13, and scored again against Union Berlin. I think that, I always liked Romano Schmid. I thought that he was one of the most underrated players in the German Bundesliga. Really just strong, burly, big bruiser of an Austrian guy. And what was missing for him was always sort of a partner in that buttressing attack role. And now they found it in Stage quite unexpectedly. I did not expect that, because Stage, as I mentioned, he began the season as a 6. Köln was a player that I always had high hopes for, just as soon as he was signed, as a matter of fact. This is a former FC Bayern München academy man who has been sort of doing the rounds elsewhere. He was on an extended loan with Hannover. He was out there with Galatasaray in the Turkish league. But he's back, and he's almost the ideal partner for Mitchell Weiser as a wingback. So we're still looking at this 3-5-2 formation that Ole Werner has more or less been running without interruption over the last 3 seasons. But now what they've done is they've sort of, both by adding some new players in the offseason and perhaps retraining some of the talent that he already has, what they've done is they've adhered to the coach's formation and built the team around the coach's preferred tactics, which was the exact same thing that Union did with almost the exact same formation under Urs Fischer. But since then, we've had several coaches who have been just trying to, what's the word I'm looking for here? Tinker only slightly with Fischer's systems. The ghost of Fischer is still with this team. And it was with the team through the 2 interim coaching regimes last season. Nenad Bielka wasn't really interfering with it all that much. And Svensson is still trying to run either a 3-3-2-2 or a 3-4-3, basically. He just can't make it work without the man who initially built the system in the first place. Perhaps an argument against rash coaching regime changes in football. I suppose with Fischer, however many he lost, you really couldn't avoid it. But the team has never been right since then, because the team has never had a coach in place long enough to sort of build their own system and then get the administrative team to bring in the players around that system. And that's just not happening with Union. And we'll see. Horst Held declined to back Svensson unconditionally for the new calendar year after this result, because they're just not pleased with what they're seeing. Even if the roster is very thin in a lot of areas, it seems like Svensson's never going with what works. If he has Rota and Hollerbach on that right-hand side, with maybe Skaka or Jordan or something like this playing up front, that tends to work a little bit, but then he stops doing it, so he's, I don't know. What do you think, Mark? Well, I talked long enough. Mark, we'll turn it over to you.
Yeah, I think Union, they just don't score goals, do they, basically? It's just things aren't going well for them at all, basically. Early doors, they were kind of getting those 1-0 scrappy wins, 1-1s away from home, and things were just about ticking over for both Svensson's men. But, obviously 9 without a win now, and they just don't even look like winning games. Even last week against Bochum, obviously they came up against a 10-man Bochum for most of the game, and they barely looked like scoring in that game. The goal they scored was actually quite nice in this game. Tom Rota, who's probably one of few players that has real natural quality in this Union Berlin roster, basically put in a great ball for Schaefer, who very rarely gets a goal, let's be honest, but he kind of popped in up at the right place. But the striking options, Vertessen is just, how much did they pay for him? Like 6-7 million, was it, or something? It's just, Oh, geez, it's just been a disaster for him, really, since he came in. I mean, Hollerbach, I mean, we love him. He's another kind of cult hero on this channel. He has the odd good moment, but he's not really a number 9 like he was deployed in this game. You know, he's just not got the finishing ability for that. And even when you look on the bench, I mean, they had the likes of Kevin Folland, who's never used, basically, for some reason. Jordan, who is also never used or very rarely used. And then even our boy Pritayin as well, who myself and Peter saw live for Fey and Wiesbaden last season. I mean, they brought him in for like $1 million and they barely used him, literally. And I mean, they were talking about flogging him before he even played a game as well. So, I mean, what's going on there with the kind of transfer policy, particularly at the front end of the pitch? I've got no ideas. But yeah, things aren't looking that good for them. The comments really weren't good for Bo Svensson at all. I mean, yeah, it's really not working. But as for Werder, I think all of us really knew that Werder were going to win this game. They're looking one of the best sides in the division at the moment. And I think they've got a mixture of quality and grit. And Ole Werner, like every year, has improved this team. And he's doing a really good job at that club, you know. And I feel as though they're a team that could definitely be dark horses for Europa League this year. As you mentioned, Peter, I mean, the names Schmid, Stage have just been awesome. And I feel as though that wing-back partnership as well, Kern and Weiser are working really, really well. And, you know, Gruel, he's not consistent, but when he's on form, he can get goals as well. And Duck, she's always there and thereabouts. So it's a good team, really. I think Zeta has really improved in net for them as well. And things are looking really good. It's not an expensively assembled squad, this Werder Bremen team, but it's a good squad and it's a very likable team. They're good to watch. And yeah, big respect for them for the improvement, really.
Yeah. Right, chaps. If we have any hope in hell of staying to time, we're probably going to have to go one game, 5 games in a lot speedier sense now. So what I'll do is I'll leave it up to you both individually to talk me through the next 5 games. So Mark, you're going to walk us through Mainz. Another fantastic win for them. Seeing off Frankfurt with 10 men, without Johnny Burkhardt, surely we must be lauding praise onto Mainz 05.
Yeah, this was a crazy game, truly. This was, I mean, how you need 20 minutes just to discuss this one alone because it was mad. I mean, basically what happened in this one is that Frankfurt just couldn't catch a break at all. And Mainz, with a mixture of luck and great tenacity, managed to come away with an amazing win, basically, in this one. I mean, the first goal, I mean, that was such a calamity from Kahiri and the goalkeeper, Santos. I mean, I've been shouting for him to start for weeks as well. And to be honest, I'm hiding my face a little bit on that one after this performance. But he was awful, basically. But yeah, we have got to credit Mainz. I mean, it was ridiculously dogged to the point when you can't even, it was just so dogged. It was unbelievable. Amazing effort. Paul Nabel has outshone Sieb massively. 2 brilliant finishes from him as well. Mainz are in a European race, definitely. Frankfurt, I mean, they didn't play badly in the game. They created chances and they just had no luck and they're just off form at the minute. Frankfurt are a kind of streaky team. When they hit a bad run, they can't catch a break, and they're on one of those runs at the minute. But yeah, for me, I love this kind of win. Mainz completely backs to the wall. Big credit to Zentner as well, who's had a brilliant season, by the way. Yeah. I thought he was superb again in this game, and not for the first time this season. Respect to Mainz. Bad luck for Frankfurt, but I mean, they must be wondering how they lost this one 3-1, really.
Yeah, I think we've talked about teams that are not wanting the winter break to be upon them. I think Frankfurt are probably quite pleased now, aren't they? Just a bit of time to get in and have a bit of a rest and a reset for the Eagles. Absolutely. Mainz flying high in 5th place, just two points off of 3rd and 4th. Unreal effort so far. Peter, right, let us see where we're at. Can you talk us through what was also a dogged but hugely important win for VfL Bochum as they turned things around for their first win of the season to beat relegation strugglers and candidates Heidenheim at home, which was, I think it's fair to say an entirely deserved one. Thoughts and theories on this one?
Absolutely. Well, an enormous win for Dieter Hecking's Revier Club. The talk of them potentially reaching the Tasmania Berlin record is now over, since they have won a match to close out the calendar year. And with 6 points, they are still in last place, but just 2 points behind Holstein Kiel and the team that they beat. When you're in the relegation zone, Germans call it the Rettende Ufer. So just 4 points behind Heidenheim there in the playoff place. And the playoff place was, of course, where they secured Bundesliga football last season. Hecking is no stranger to good tactics, and I think that his tactics were very, very sharp in this one. He used Matusz Bero as the 10 behind a double striker set of Brzezinski and Philipp Hoffmann. Both Brzezinski and Bero scored in the first half in this one, and then after that, of course, they were able to sit back and defend stably with discipline. And if Hecking has brought one thing to this club, it has been a lot of defensive discipline. That was evident from his very, very first match in charge when they unexpectedly nicked a point off of Leverkusen. I have to say that probably the biggest reason why, there are two big reasons why Hecking succeeded in this one. Number one was that Sissoko probably played his best match of the year. Ibrahima Sissoko was a player who acquired this offseason on a free transfer. One of 3 players who had an estimated market worth of 5 million who were gotten on a free transfer. He was another one that Peter Seidler was having difficulty figuring out how to use properly. And in this one, he was deployed as a 6, and man, did he cover a lot of ground there. He absolutely, I was, of course, heartbroken that neither Gerrit Holtmann nor Sir Lord Conte featured in the starting 11 in this one, because I wanted to see who was going to take the speed record back, and everything I was took on this match on was there nullified. But I did enjoy watching Sissoko play in that box-to-box fashion a great deal. Something else very, very important, the return of Bernardo, the Brazilian, to this defensive core. He, of course, was linked with big money transfers both to Gladbach and Union prior to the close of the transfer window, but he got hurt just prior to that. And I wonder if Peter Seidler could have succeeded in this team if he had Bernardo, because Bernardo can play as a fullback, he can play as a wingback, he can defend excellently, and Hecking is very glad that he has him, I'm sure. And Peter Seidler, when he's watching the matches on his coffee break from the Aarhus Tankstelle, where he runs the car wash at this point, I think that he's probably cursing the fact that he has that Dieter Hecking has Bernardo and he never got a chance to use him.
Absolutely. Huge win for still the bottom side of the Bundesliga, but it certainly makes things a lot more tantalizing, from a relegation race point of view at the very least. Mark, I'm going to go to you about the Gladbach game, because you've been such a positive force behind their inconsistent form. You've backed them to end this back-to-back winning, unfortunate statistic that they've had for so very long, and they finally achieved it, beating Hoffenheim 2-1 away from home, and with I think obviously the winning moment from Alassane Plea was a fitting way for them to end that run, because it was a fine goal to end a very long streak.
Yeah, it was, but they definitely required quite a bit of luck to win this game as well, to be honest. Again, if you look at the XG, they got those 2 goals from less than 0.5 XG. I think, just to double check that, 0.42 XG against 3.2 for Hoffenheim. So this was similar kind of numbers to the game, which we just talked about, Mainz, Frankfurt. And once again, the team with the less XG won it. So, it proves that XG isn't everything, guys. Yeah. But, I feel as though it was 2 good goals, as you say, from the team. The Zander one was a little bit lucky, perhaps. And I think Baumann was a little bit poorly sighted. But good to see him get his first Bundesliga goal. And then, the winner from Alassane Plea, who is building a good season, by the way, overall. He's a player that we've always talked about as being a little bit too inconsistent at times, but he's definitely been more hot than cold this season. And this was a really good individual win after the through ball from Robin Hack. As for Hoffenheim, I mean, again, they just missed loads of chances. I mean, Lojek, it's just not working out for him, is it? I mean, that chance he had at 2-1, he's got to be finishing that, really, for the 2-2. And yeah, I mean, really, Ilzer hasn't really changed that much, has he? Not much has improved. I mean, he always looks like such an angry guy as well, Ilzer. I don't know why, but he looks like the kind of guy who just wants to give someone a smack in the face, you know? But it's just...
Probably Quadek after missing that chance.
Yeah, I think so, yeah. But to be honest, if things carry on going that badly, he is going to end up giving someone a smack sooner or later, because after that win against Leipzig on his first game, it's just not worked out at all, has it? And I mean, again, they weren't particularly bad in this game. I mean, 3.2 XG. They should be able to get at least a draw out of that game. But defensively, they just... Obviously, he went with a back four in this game as well, with Prass and Gendry on the wings, and then Ensoki and Akpoguma in the middle. But it's just not working out. I mean, we saw Sam Asku as well in this game, who we've not seen for a long, long time. But whatever he tries, it's just not working. And even with the likes of Tom Bischoff, who's obviously linked with a big money move to Bayern Munich as well, and you know, Kramaric, the evergreen, and Brun Larsen, who's been on form, it's just not working. And the tactics as well are just changing all the time, and it's just I'm starting to lose my faith in Ilzer a little bit, to be honest. They're in a dogfight, but yeah, Gladbach are in a European race, so we'll just have to see whether these two teams stay on the same trajectory going into 2025.
Yeah, absolutely the case, and a very good win despite being backs against the wall for the Foals. Peter, over to you for the game that you did call correctly, as DM very rightly put in the chat. A needed away win for Dortmund, stabilising their tragic away form up to this point. Seeing off Wolfsburg 3-1 in the end, despite a little bit of a mini comeback and a little bit of a fright towards the end of the game after Pascal Gross got his marching orders.
Indeed. I don't want to take too much credit, of course, because part of my prediction, if you want to watch that prediction show, was that Giovanni Reina would start and star, which he did neither. So what we essentially saw with this one, and I will be the first to admit that I sort of invaded a local Philadelphia soccer shop and insisted that they put the Bundesliga on so that I could watch this game, and then proceeded to annoy everybody in the store as I was just amazed with what Julian Brandt did on those two goals in the 28th and 30th minute, and then was supremely frustrated with the rest of pretty much everything that he did over the course of the entire match. It was the best of times. It was the worst of times for one of my favorite players, a player whom I often say should be playing regularly on the German national team and should have gone to the Euros this year. So he had that Dortmund had that brilliant 5-minute span in which they scored the 3 goals. Then we had nothing but some really horrible cutback, some bad diagonals, it was played so wide, and then when they tried to reach the players in the center for the rest of the game, it was frustratingly poor. So it was a match of 4-1-4-1 versus 4-1-4-1, and I would say that Dortmund deserved the victory based on the fact that their tactics were a little bit more fluid. The ball control was good. Their play on the break was good. It was all of this wide running, in part brought on by the fact that they were facing a mirror constellation that screwed things up. If I can take credit for one little thing, I would say that I've been screaming at Ralf Hasenhüttl not to start Jonas Wind and move Mohamed Amora over to the wing. That really messes up the VfL attack. It's simply not as effective that way. And we did get a little bit of a mini comeback from Wolfsburg, which Mark and I saw them do in Freiburg last Friday night. It was, of course, Maximilian Arnold directing the team in a solid way, also set-piece master that he is, and Vavro, who has earned consistent praise from both Mark and myself, getting that goal. But Dortmund closed out the match in otherwise effective fashion, I would say. And yes, they caught Ralf Hasenhüttl making a tactical error. Good on them. Also, fantastic work by Felix Nemetja, who's been great since he came back from his injury as a holding six midfielder. They need to get another six somehow, some way in the transfer window. Maybe take Salih Özcan back, terminate that loan early. Might not be a bad idea. Or give Emre Can some magical, invigorating, take him back 5 years juice. If I think you can get that. They weren't selling that at the soccer shop in Philadelphia, but maybe they sell that someplace else.
Somewhere else, I imagine. Yeah, so good and rare away win for Dortmund, pushing them up the league. And it's fair to say it's a very condensed league. You know, from 11th place Wolfsburg, up to fifth placed Mainz. There are 4 points separating those teams. It is very close, and a win can very much shoot you up the table. And a few losses, like Wolfsburg have now encountered, can shoot you right down. And well, I suppose the honours fall on me to cover this last game. And yeah, rightly, I am going to do nothing but praise St. Pauli. Getting a 1-0 away win at my boys. Stuttgart is one of those games where, for me, it was a really important one for Stuttgart, because a win would have put them into fifth place themselves and would, therefore started to look at things a lot more favourably from a table point of view. And a lot of people were predicting this one to be a comfortable home win. And I even got caught up in it myself, which I'm not usually the sort of person to do so. But Pauli played a really good game. Made the most of some questionable Stuttgart defending and clearances to get the first and only goal through Eggestein, also via a deflection off Mittelstedt, I think, right at the end, to put it in. Obviously, they had the penalty where Henri Chase decides to absolutely wipe out. I can't remember which player it was, but Newbeld as well to save the penalty. Both teams had chances to make this one also a very high-scoring match. Stuttgart did what they always do and tried their very best to push and get at least an equaliser, but it left them very, very vulnerable on the break. And Pauli probably and should have had a couple of goals on the break themselves. Very frustrating overall, I think, for VfB, because if I can quickly ask one of you boys, the pressure's really starting to build on Demirovic. Mark, I know you said something the other week about him potentially now feeling like a bit of a flop after a pretty strong start to his Stuttgart career. Even jolly old Saint Nick Voldemata couldn't help us out in this one. What a shame, because he maybe was one of the brighter sparks. But what are your thoughts on Demi quickly?
Yeah, he's too hit and miss. Like, he does still have some good games, but I would say overall I've been a little bit underwhelmed by his performances. I mean, he has scored a few goals, but I feel as though Voldemata was quite good as well. Like, in some parts, I think when he did that run, when he skinned the fullback and got in, that was brilliant. Yeah, I mean, Voldemata is probably the most exciting VfB player right now. I mean, he really has been excellent the last few weeks. But yeah, Demi, from what I've heard, the fans are not overly impressed with him, right? I've heard quite a few murmurings at the fans. Statistics-wise, he's done okay. I think he's got, 7 league goals, but it's just the performances. I think that's the issue. And, some games he's been really poor when they've needed him to turn up. And this was another one. That's the problem with him. But then again, there've been good games, like when he played at Bremen a few weeks ago and he got that double when, they would have lost the game without him. So it's not all been bad, but he's not quite justified a 25 million price tag. But I would say there's more to come from him, I hope, in the next half of the season.
I think all VfB fans want for Christmas is a fit and raring to go Deniz Undav for 2025, and maybe El Bilal Toure as well. He's impressed in parts. But yeah, that's all the action from match week 15, the last before the winter break. That is us done from a live show point of view. I'd be remiss to not say that we've got another vlog coming out. That's tomorrow morning, if I'm not mistaken, Mark.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's going to be going live 12 midday German time, which is 11 a.m. English time. What time Philly time, Peter? Go on, you might as well tell us. What will that be, Philly time?
You said 12 noon.
Yeah, German time. Yeah.
Yeah, so that would be 6 p.m. on Christmas Eve in the eastern United States, 7 p.m. Central, 8 p.m. Mountain, 9 p.m. Pacific. Yeah.
Or will it not be? Will it not be a.m. because you're behind time, right? Yeah, you're behind us, so I guess it'll be a.m. Yeah. So. Yeah, but anyway, yeah, there you go.
It'll be live at some point.
Oh my God, how embarrassing! Oh Lord! Oh my
It's
God!
all right. If you want to wake up early, guys, you've got me.
You've got me all. Oh, I'm all mixed up. Good Lord! Oh, good Lord!
Yeah. Fantastic. Yeah.
Thinking in 4 times.
Glad you've enjoyed it as well, Balam. Yeah, been good to watch for an hour. Yeah, well, yeah, we hope you've given you some Christmas entertainment. Dean Harris as well. Great show. Have a great Christmas.
Well, that happened.
Merry Christmas to all. Don't forget, to check in for the don't forget to check in. And if you want to make sure you get a reminder, make sure you turn on your notifications as well and subscribe to our channel. And don't forget, you can check out our Instagram as well. We're going to be continuing to be going to games over the next few weeks. Well, once the break's over, of course. Yeah. And then, but anyway, we need to get to our Christmas dinners, don't we? We need to get those turkeys in and start our Christmas preparation. So thank you very much for all of your excellent support this year and everything. And we'll see you again in 2025, I guess. So thank you very much, guys. Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. Bye-bye, guys.
Merry Christmas.